Rain hammers the windows of a mansion on the outskirts of Seoul. 12:07 a.m. Nia Brooks sits on the cold marble floor of her bathroom, back pressed against the tub, knees pulled to her chest. Her mascara has run in thin black rivers down her cheeks. Her hands won't stop shaking. Downstairs, a door slams. Footsteps. Then silence. She presses her palm against her mouth to keep the sound in. Therefore, she does the only thing she has left. She picks up her phone, thumb trembling over the screen, and types the word she's been too afraid to say out loud for 3 years. Please, if you still care about me, come before it's too late. Her thumb hovers. But she doesn't stop to think. She hits send. The second the message disappears, her stomach drops. Wrong number. Her whole body goes rigid. That was the old contact. The one she never deleted. The one that doesn't belong to Daniel at all. Across the city, in a penthouse office 30 floors above the wet streets of Gangnam, a phone buzzes once on a desk of black glass. A man in a tailored charcoal suit lifts it without urgency. Rings on 2 fingers catch the low light. This is Kang Min-jae, the name men in this city don't say above a whisper. He reads the message once. Then again. Something in his jaw shifts. Barely visible. But there. Because in 11 years of blood, silence, and unanswered pleas from people far more dangerous than this, Kang Min-jae has never once ignored a cry for help. He sets down his glass. Find her. The rain keeps falling over Seoul, and neither of them yet understands that a text meant for a dead relationship just detonated the beginning of something neither will survive unchanged. Nia Brooks's world exists inside 4 walls of borrowed perfection. The mansion sits behind iron gates on a private road in Seongbuk-dong, ivy-climbing manicured brick, cameras mounted at every corner, not for her safety, she's learned, but for her supervision. Inside, marble floors gleam under crystal chandeliers. A cook prepares 3 meals a day. A driver waits by a car she's not permitted to take anywhere without approval. To the outside world, she is Mrs. Daniel Chen, wife of one of the city's most respected financiers. Photographed at galas in silk gowns, always smiling, always exactly 1 step behind her husband. Therefore, nobody asks questions. Because why would they? Daniel doesn't yell. Daniel doesn't hit. Daniel simply removes things, her friends, one by one, until the calls stopped coming. Her banking access, until she needed his signature to buy her own coffee. Her car keys, for her own good, after a fender bender that was never her fault. Her voice, slowly, syllable by syllable, until 3 years in she barely recognizes the sound of her own laugh. She used to paint. Color used to live under her fingernails. Now the easels are gone, sold at Daniel's insistence, a hobby that clutters the house, and her hands only shake. Across the city, Kang Min-jae's world runs on a different current entirely. His office occupies the top floor of a building that, on paper, trades in imports and logistics. In reality, it's the nerve center of an empire that touches ports, casinos, and half the unregistered cash moving through Incheon. Men twice his age lower their eyes when he walks a room. He built this from nothing after his father died owing money to people who don't forgive debts, and he made sure nobody in Seoul forgets what happens to people who cross him. But there's a rule buried under all of it, one none of his men question anymore because they've watched it hold for over a decade. When someone reaches out in genuine desperation, Kang Min-jae answers. Not because he's soft. Because somewhere in the wreckage of his own past, someone once ignored a cry like that, and it cost him everything. So when 3 of his men are dispatched at midnight to trace a single wrong number text, nobody in the room finds it strange. By morning, they have her name. By morning, they have her name. Nia Brooks. 28. American-born, married 4 years to Daniel Chen. No criminal record. No debts. No connection to anything Min-jae's organization touches. Just a woman who sent a message to a stranger because she had run out of people to send it to. His lead man, Seo Jun-woo, drops the file on the desk. She's clean, boss. Just a housewife having a bad night, looks like. Min-jae doesn't answer right away. He's still looking at the message on his screen, rereading 4 words that shouldn't mean anything to him. If you still care about me. Nobody has said that to him in a long time. Nobody would dare. Get me her number, he says finally. Not to trace it again. To call it. Jun-woo hesitates. And say what? Min-jae's eyes don't lift from the screen. That someone's listening. Before we go further, I want to know where in the world you're watching this from. Drop your city in the comments below. And if this story already has its hooks in you, hit subscribe now, because this one only gets more dangerous from here. Comment your predictions too. Do you think she answers his call? Nia is folding laundry in the walk-in closet when her phone buzzes on the shelf beside her, the burner line, not the one Daniel monitors. Unknown number. Her heart slams once, hard, against her ribs. Her first instinct isn't curiosity. It's fear. Therefore, she doesn't answer. She stares at the screen until it stops ringing, sets the phone face down like it might bite her, and goes back to folding shirts that aren't even hers to wear anymore. But it rings again 10 minutes later. This time she picks it up with shaking fingers, brings it to her ear, and says nothing. Just breathing. Waiting. A man's voice, low and unhurried, fills the silence first. You sent a message last night. Wrong number. Her blood goes cold. I'm sorry, I don't know how you got this. You don't need to apologize. Please, just forget you ever saw it. Delete it. I didn't mean to send that to anyone, it was a mistake, His voice doesn't rise. If anything, it softens, which somehow frightens her more. I'm not calling to hurt you. She presses her back against the closet wall, sliding down until she's sitting on the floor between racks of dresses she never chose for herself. Then why are you calling? A pause on the other end. Long enough that she almost hangs up. Because for someone to write what you wrote, Min-jae says finally, it means somebody already hurt you enough to make you think nobody would come. Her breath catches audibly. She presses her hand over her mouth too late to stop the small, broken sound that escapes. He hears it anyway. But here's where it gets complicated, because the sound isn't just grief. It's recognition. Somewhere on the other end of the line, in a penthouse 30 floors above the wet streets of Gangnam, a man who has ordered violence without blinking finds himself gripping the phone a little tighter, listening to a stranger cry, and feeling something he can't immediately name. I have to go, Nia whispers. Then go, Min-jae says. But that number stays open. Whenever you need it. The line goes dead. Nia sits on the closet floor a long time afterward, staring at a blank screen, wondering why a stranger's voice sounds safer than her own husband's ever has. Downstairs, a door opens. Familiar footsteps on marble. Daniel is home. She wipes her face fast, shoves the phone deep into a coat pocket, and forces her voice into the practiced, pleasant register she's used for 3 years straight. Coming, she calls down, standing on legs that still won't quite stop shaking. Nobody has noticed yet that something in her has shifted. Not freedom, not yet, just the smallest crack of light under a door she thought had been sealed shut forever. But cracks, once they start, don't close on their own. 3 days pass before Nia calls the number back. She does it from the pantry, phone pressed to her ear, voice barely above a whisper, one eye on the doorway in case Daniel's assistant walks in unannounced. The house always has ears, a housekeeper who reports too much, a driver who mentions where she's been. It's me, she says, as if he wouldn't already know. I know, Min-jae says. There's the faint clink of ice in a glass, the low hum of a city behind his voice. You didn't have to explain yourself last time. You don't have to now either. I need you to understand something. Her fingers grip the pantry shelf, knuckles whitening. I'm not. This isn't some cry for rescue. I have a life. A husband. People who love me. Do they? The question lands like a slap. She opens her mouth to argue, and nothing comes out. Because the truth is, she can't remember the last time anyone asked if she was okay and actually waited for the real answer. Therefore, instead of defending Daniel, she changes the subject, voice cracking at the edges. Who are you? Really? Someone who found out you're not what my men expected, Min-jae says. No debts. No scandal. No reason for a woman like you to send a message like that at midnight. A pause. Except one. Her breath goes shallow. You investigated me. I investigate everyone who touches my world, even by accident. His voice doesn't apologize for it. What I found wasn't a criminal. It was someone hiding. Nia's eyes burn. She blinks hard, refusing to let it show in her voice. Hiding from what? That's what I'm asking you. Silence stretches between them, thick enough to touch. Somewhere beyond the pantry door, heels click against marble, Daniel's assistant, checking rooms like she's inventorying furniture. I have to go, Nia breathes, and hangs up before he can answer. But the second the call ends, something in her chest aches differently than it did an hour ago. Not from fear this time. From being seen. Kang Min-jae sets the phone down slowly, staring at the skyline through floor-to-ceiling glass, Seoul glittering wet and endless below him. Junwoo enters without knocking, a privilege earned over 11 years of loyalty, and drops a folder on the desk. You wanted everything for the husband. Here it is. Min-jae flips it open. Daniel Chen. Harvard-educated. Runs a private wealth management firm catering to Seoul's elite. Chairs 2 charity boards. Photographed shaking hands with senators. On the surface, untouchable. But Min-jae keeps turning pages, and the picture starts to rot at the edges. Shell companies registered in the Caimans. Wire transfers routed through Macau casinos that exist mostly on paper. Numbers that don't reconcile with any legitimate business Daniel Chen claims to run. This isn't wealth management, Min-jae says quietly. This is laundering. Big money. International. Bigger than us, Junwoo confirms. Interpol's had a task force circling this network for 2 years and hasn't touched it. Whoever's behind it is careful. Min-jae studies a photo clipped to the last page, Daniel Chen at a gala, arm around his wife's waist, both of them smiling for cameras. Nia's smile doesn't reach her eyes. Min-jae has seen that same look on hostages who've learned to perform calm. Here's where it gets crazy, because what started as a wrong number just handed Min-jae a thread connecting to a laundering network his own organization has quietly tracked for months, one that funnels dirty money through ports his people control without his knowledge. He's using our shipping lanes, Min-jae says, low. Junwoo's expression shifts. Without paying us. Without knowing whose city he's standing in. Min-jae closes the folder. For the first time, protecting Nia isn't just instinct. It's a strategy. But it's also something else, something he doesn't say out loud yet, because he doesn't fully understand it himself. He keeps circling back to a woman crying quietly into a phone at midnight, and he can't stop wondering what her life looks like behind those gates. If you're enjoying the story so far, make sure to hit that subscribe button, because trust me, what happens between these two is about to get a lot more dangerous and a lot more personal. That night, Daniel finds Nia's phone. Not the burner, he doesn't know about that yet, but her regular one, the one he monitors freely, the one where he's cross-checked her call logs for 3 years like an accountant auditing a fraud. Who's Grace? He asks, standing in the doorway of their bedroom, holding her phone loosely like it means nothing. His tone is calm. It's always calm. That's what makes it worse. Nia's stomach drops. Grace was her college roommate. They haven't spoken in 2 years, not since Daniel made it clear that friendship distracted her. She texted me happy birthday, Nia says carefully. I didn't even reply. You didn't need to. Daniel sets the phone down on the dresser with exaggerated gentleness. I just don't like being surprised, Nia. You know that about me. I know. The words come automatic now, worn smooth from repetition. He crosses the room, tucks a strand of hair behind her ear with 2 fingers, and the touch that should feel tender instead makes every muscle in her body lock tight. I do all this because I love you. You understand that, right? The world out there isn't safe for someone like you. People take advantage. I'm protecting you. I know, she says again, because it's easier than the truth, that she can't remember what her own voice sounds like when it's not agreeing with him. He kisses her forehead and leaves the room like nothing happened. She stands frozen for a long moment. Then, once his footsteps fade down the hall, she reaches beneath the mattress on her side of the bed, fingers searching until they close around the burner phone hidden inside a rolled sock. Still there. Still safe. Therefore, later that night, once the house has gone dark and Daniel's breathing beside her has slowed into sleep, she slips out of bed, locks herself in the bathroom, and dials the number she's already memorized. Min-jae answers on the second ring, like he'd been waiting. He found my phone tonight, she whispers, voice trembling in the dark. Not this one. The other one. He goes through everything. Every message, every call, her voice breaks. He controls everything, and he calls it love. There's a long pause on the line. When Min-jae speaks again, his voice has lost its usual careful distance. That's not love, he says. That's a cage with good lighting. Nia presses her hand over her mouth, silent tears sliding down her face in the dark bathroom, because no one, not her mother, not the friends Daniel slowly erased, not a single soul in 3 years, has ever said it back to her that plainly. But saying it out loud doesn't make her safe. It makes her dangerous to keep quiet. The next morning, Nia meets Min-jae in person for the first time. It happens at a small cafe tucked into a side street in Hongdae, far from the galleries and charity luncheons where Daniel's world tracks her movements. She wears sunglasses despite the overcast sky, a scarf pulled high, glancing over her shoulder twice before slipping through the door. Min-jae is already seated in the back corner, facing the entrance. The way men like him always sit, she'll later learn, so nothing can approach from behind. He stands when she enters. Just slightly. Just enough that she notices. "You came," he says. "I told myself I wouldn't." She sits across from him, hands wrapped around a cup of tea she doesn't remember ordering. Up close, he's younger than she expected, sharper-jawed, eyes carrying a kind of stillness that doesn't match the rumors she's heard whispered at galas about the man who runs half the city's underworld. "Why did you, then?" "Because you're the only person who's asked me a real question in 3 years." She stares into the tea. "And I'm terrified that it makes me pathetic." "It doesn't." His voice is even, but firm. "It makes you starve. There's a difference." Therefore, she finally looks up at him, really looks, and something in his expression makes the knot in her chest loosen, just slightly, for the first time since she can remember. "I want to offer you protection," Min-jae says, no preamble. "Somewhere safe. Away from him. My people can move you within the hour." Nia's spine straightens instantly. "No." If you're enjoying the story so far, make sure to hit that subscribe button, because trust me, what happens between these two is about to get a lot more dangerous and a lot more personal. That night, Daniel finds Nia's phone. Not the burner, he doesn't know about that yet, but her regular one, the one he monitors freely, the one where he's cross-checked her call logs for 3 years like an accountant auditing a fraud. "Who's Grace?" he asks, standing in the doorway of their bedroom, holding her phone loosely like it means nothing. His tone is calm. It's always calm. That's what makes it worse. Nia's stomach drops. Grace was her college roommate. They haven't spoken in 2 years, not since Daniel made it clear that friendship distracted her. "She texted me happy birthday," Nia says carefully. "I didn't even reply." "You didn't need to." Daniel sets the phone down on the dresser with exaggerated gentleness. "I just don't like being surprised, Nia. You know that about me." "I know." The words come automatic now, worn smooth from repetition. He crosses the room, tucks a strand of hair behind her ear with 2 fingers, and the touch that should feel tender instead makes every muscle in her body lock tight. "I do all this because I love you. You understand that, right? The world out there isn't safe for someone like you. People take advantage. I'm protecting you." "I know," she says again, because it's easier than the truth, that she can't remember what her own voice sounds like when it's not agreeing with him. He kisses her forehead and leaves the room like nothing happened. She stands frozen for a long moment. Then, once his footsteps fade down the hall, she reaches beneath the mattress on her side of the bed, fingers searching until they close around the burner phone hidden inside a rolled sock. Still there. Still safe. Therefore, later that night, once the house has gone dark and Daniel's breathing beside her has slowed into sleep, she slips out of bed, locks herself in the bathroom, and dials the number she's already memorized. Min-jae answers on the second ring, like he'd been waiting. "He found my phone tonight," she whispers, voice trembling in the dark. "Not this one. The other one. He goes through everything. Every message, every call, her voice breaks. He controls everything, and he calls it love." There's a long pause on the line. When Min-jae speaks again, his voice has lost its usual careful distance. "That's not love," he says. "That's a cage with good lighting." Nia presses her hand over her mouth, silent tears sliding down her face in the dark bathroom, because no one, not her mother, not the friends Daniel slowly erased, not a single soul in 3 years, has ever said it back to her that plainly. But saying it out loud doesn't make her safe. It makes her dangerous to keep quiet. The next morning, Nia meets Min-jae in person for the first time. It happens at a small cafe tucked into a side street in Hongdae, far from the galleries and charity luncheons where Daniel's world tracks her movements. She wears sunglasses despite the overcast sky, a scarf pulled high, glancing over her shoulder twice before slipping through the door. Min-jae is already seated in the back corner, facing the entrance. The way men like him always sit, she'll later learn, so nothing can approach from behind. He stands when she enters. Just slightly. Just enough that she notices. "You came," he says. "I told myself I wouldn't." She sits across from him, hands wrapped around a cup of tea she doesn't remember ordering. Up close, he's younger than she expected, sharper-jawed, eyes carrying a kind of stillness that doesn't match the rumors she's heard whispered at galas about the man who runs half the city's underworld. Why did you, then? Because you're the only person who's asked me a real question in 3 years. She stares into the tea. And I'm terrified that it makes me pathetic. It doesn't. His voice is even, but firm. It makes you starve. There's a difference. Therefore, she finally looks up at him, really looks, and something in his expression makes the knot in her chest loosen, just slightly, for the first time since she can remember. I want to offer you protection, Min-jae says, no preamble. Somewhere safe. Away from him. My people can move you within the hour. Nia's spine straightens instantly. No. Back inside the house, Nia stands at her bedroom window, staring down at the street, certain for one dizzying second that she sees a car she doesn't recognize parked just past the gate. Her heart does something complicated, not fear this time, but something warmer, more dangerous. Because somewhere in the last 2 weeks, without meaning to, without permission from the life Daniel built around her, Nia Brooks has started waiting for a phone call the way she used to wait for something she'd long since stopped believing in. Hope. But hope, in a house like this one, has always come with a price. And downstairs, unseen, Daniel Chen stands in his study, staring at a printed page of phone records his private security team pulled that afternoon. A single unregistered number appearing again and again over the past 2 weeks, at hours his wife should have been asleep. He sets the page down slowly. His expression doesn't change. That's what makes it dangerous. Daniel doesn't confront her that night. That isn't how he operates. Instead, he waits 3 days, watching, cataloguing, the exact way Nia's shoulders relax when she thinks she's alone, the extra 10 minutes she now spends in the bathroom each night, the new lightness in her voice that he hasn't heard in years and doesn't recognize as belonging to him. Therefore, he does what he does best. He hires someone to find out exactly who owns the unregistered number. Meanwhile, unaware that the walls around her have started closing in, Nia experiences something she hasn't felt in longer than she can remember. A full, uncomplicated afternoon. It starts with a knock at a side door of the estate, one Daniel security rarely monitors because it leads only to the old garden shed. A courier hands her a package, no return address, just her name in careful handwriting. Inside, wrapped in brown paper, is a painting. Her painting. The one she sold 2 years ago, in a moment of desperation, back when Daniel decided her hobby was cluttering the house and she needed the money more than the memory. A study of the Han River at dawn, blues bleeding into gold, brushstrokes she hasn't seen in so long she'd almost convinced herself she imagined how good they were. Her hands shake as she unwraps it fully. Tucked into the frame's edge is a small note. You didn't lose your gift. You just stopped being allowed to use it. No signature. She doesn't need one. She calls him within the minute, voice cracking before he even says hello. How did you find this? I have people who find things, Min-jae says simply. It took less effort than finding you did. I sold it because I needed, her voice breaks fully now, tears sliding hot and fast. Because he said I needed the money more than some picture, and I believed him, and I let it go, I just. You don't have to explain, Min-jae says, quiet and certain. I didn't buy it back for an apology. I bought it back because someone should have told you a long time ago that you're allowed to want things for yourself. Nia presses the phone hard against her ear, sitting on the floor of the garden shed surrounded by old terracotta pots and the smell of soil, crying in a way that doesn't feel like grief for the first time in years. It feels like relief. Nobody's remembered anything about me in 3 years, she whispers. Not really. Not like this. I remember, Min-jae says. I remember everything you tell me. But here's where it gets crazy, because as he says it, sitting alone in his penthouse office with the city spread out gold and glittering below him, Kang Min-jae realizes with a kind of quiet, terrifying clarity that he means it completely, and that terrifies him more than any rival ever has. They meet again 2 days later, carefully, in a private room above a restaurant Min-jae's family has owned for 2 decades, where the staff know not to ask questions and the windows are tinted from the outside. Nia arrives in a plain coat, hair down instead of styled, looking more like herself than Min-jae has ever seen her. I brought something, she says, setting a small canvas on the table between them. Still wet in places, colors raw and unfinished. A single lit window in a dark house. I started painting again. Just small things. At night. When he's asleep. Min-jae studies it for a long moment. It's good. It's messy. So is everything worth doing? She laughs, really laughs, head tipping back, the sound surprising even herself. Min-jae watches it happen like he's witnessing something rare and endangered, and something in his own chest shifts to match it. He can't remember, sitting there, the last time he laughed without calculating who was watching him do it. "You don't smile much," Nia observes, still catching her breath. "I looked you up, you know. After our first call. Photos of you at events. You always look like you're bored, or deciding whether to have someone killed. Sometimes both. You're doing it now, though. Almost." She tilts her head, smiling. "Almost," he agrees, and something passes between them that neither names, not yet, not out loud, but that settles low and warm and dangerous in the space between 2 cups of untouched tea. Therefore, over the following weeks, the pattern deepens. Late-night coffee in cars parked on quiet streets. Early drives through Seoul before sunrise, the city empty and silver, Nia's hand resting near his on the console without ever quite touching. Conversations that stretch past midnight about nothing and everything. Her childhood in a small town outside Chicago, his father's slow decline into debt and desperation, the empire he built afterward out of grief he never let himself fully grieve. Junwoo notices the change most clearly of all. "You haven't ordered a single retaliation strike in 3 weeks, he says one afternoon, dropping a report on Min-jae's desk. "The Otani situation, that's usually handled within days. You just let it go." "I redirected it," Min-jae says. "Handled quieter. No bodies." "That's not like you." "Maybe I'm tired of bodies." Min-jae doesn't look up from the file in front of him, but something in his tone carries a weight Junwoo has never heard from him before. Junwoo studies his boss for a long moment, then says quietly, "Whoever she is, she's good for you." Min-jae doesn't answer. But he doesn't deny it either. If you're enjoying the story, hit that subscribe button, because everything that's been building quietly between them is about to collide head-on with the past neither of them saw coming. The collision starts with a photograph. Nia finds it while going through an old box of her late father's belongings, shipped from Chicago after his passing 2 years ago, a box she's never had the strength to open until tonight, alone in the garden shed with a single lantern for light. A photograph, edges yellowed, dated decades back. 2 men standing outside a modest shop in what looks like an older district of Seoul, arms around each other's shoulders, both laughing at something outside the frame. She recognizes her father instantly, younger, unguarded. The second man's face stops her cold. The resemblance is unmistakable, the same sharp jaw, the same stillness in the eyes even mid-laugh. She flips the photograph over with trembling fingers. Written in faded ink, Kang Sung-ho and David Brooks, the day everything changed. Kang. Min-jae's surname. Her heart pounds so hard she can hear it in her ears. She grabs her phone, hand shaking, and calls him immediately, the words tumbling out before he's even finished saying hello. "My father knew your father," she breathes. "I found a photograph." Min-jae, they knew each other, decades ago, this can't be a coincidence, it can't be, the wrong number, all of it. On the other end of the line, Min-jae goes very still. Because he remembers a story his father told him once, near the end, when the debts had grown too heavy and the illness had taken most of what remained, a story about an American businessman who once loaned him money with no interest and no collateral, simply because it was the right thing to do, at a time when Min-jae's father had nothing left to offer in return. A debt his father always said he could never fully repay. "Send me the photo," Min-jae says, voice low and strange even to his own ears. "Now." But even as she does, in a townhouse across the city, Daniel Chen sits at his desk studying a fully compiled report. A name, a face, an empire attached to the unregistered number that's been lighting up his wife's second phone for 3 weeks straight. Kang Min-jae. Daniel's expression finally breaks its calm, curling instead into something colder, sharper, far more dangerous than anger. He picks up his own phone and dials a number of his own, one that belongs not to a criminal, but to something far more untouchable in this city, the press. "I have a story for you," Daniel says smoothly. "About my wife. And the Mafia boss she's been sneaking around with behind my back." Daniel doesn't shout. He doesn't break anything. He hangs up the phone, folds his hands on the desk, and waits, the same calm he's worn for years now curdling into something far more calculated. Therefore, by morning, the story runs. Not on the front page. Worse, buried in the business section, dressed up as concern, framed as a tragedy instead of a scandal. Prominent financier's wife linked to organized crime figure. A blurred photo of Nia getting into a car outside the restaurant above which she'd painted that unfinished canvas. A quote, unattributed, describing concerns for her safety and well-being. By noon, it's everywhere. Nia sees it first on her phone, hands going numb as she scrolls, her own face staring back at her beside Min-jae's name in bold print. The comments beneath it are vicious, words like gold digger and criminal's mistress stacking up faster than she can process them. Daniel finds her in the kitchen an hour later, phone still clutched in her white-knuckled hand. "I saved you," he says, voice soft, almost gentle, the way it always is right before it isn't. "Before you humiliated yourself completely. Before he used you the way men like that use everyone. You did this." Her voice shakes, but it doesn't break, not this time. "You leaked this. I protected my family's name." He steps closer, and she forces herself not to step back. "You should be thanking me." But here's where it gets crazy, because across the city, the story doesn't land the way Daniel expected. It doesn't just damage Nia. It ignites something in Min-jae's world that hasn't moved in years. Rival organizations smell blood the second his name hits print. Old enemies who've stayed quiet out of fear start testing the waters, wondering aloud in back rooms whether Kang Min-jae has gone soft, distracted, human. A city built on the assumption that is untouchable suddenly starts asking whether that's still true. Junwoo storms into the office with 3 phones in his hand. The Lim family is pulling out of the port deal. The Otani situation just reopened. 2 of our shipping contacts went quiet overnight. He drops the phones on the desk. "This isn't just embarrassing, boss. This is an opening. And people are already moving through it." Min-jae stares at the newspaper spread across his desk, Nia's photograph beside his name, and feels something cold settle behind his ribs, not fear for himself, but for her, for what this exposure means for a woman who spent 3 years disappearing quietly and just got dragged, violently, into the light. "He did this on purpose," Min-jae says. "Not to expose me. To isolate her. Make her think she has nowhere left to go but back to him." "It's working," Junwoo says grimly. "Half the city thinks she's your mistress. The other half thinks you kidnapped her." Min-jae's jaw tightens. "Then we make sure the truth outlasts the story." But Daniel isn't finished. Therefore, 3 days later, the real move arrives, quieter, colder, far more effective than any newspaper column. A witness named Grace Lin, one of the few former employees at Daniel's firm who agreed months ago, secretly, to help build a case against the laundering network, the same evidence Min-jae's people have been quietly compiling for weeks, disappears from her apartment in Itaewon without a trace. Min-jae learns within the hour, his phone ringing at 2 a.m. with Junwoo's voice, tight and urgent. "She's gone, boss. No struggle. No forced entry. Whoever took her, she let them in." "Daniel," Min-jae says, already reaching for his coat. "There's more." Junwoo's voice drops lower. "He sent something. To your private line." The message arrives seconds later, no threat, no ultimatum spelled out in words, just a photograph. Grace Lin, blindfolded, seated in a chair in a room Min-jae doesn't recognize. Beneath it, a single line of text. "Walk away from my wife, or find out what happens to people who help her." Min-jae stares at the screen, his hand tightening slowly around the phone until the metal casing creaks. He calls Nia immediately. She answers on the first ring, voice already frantic. "Min-jae, there's a car outside the house I don't recognize, I think. Listen to me." His voice is steady, but urgent beneath it. "Don't leave the house tonight. Don't answer the door for anyone but Junwoo. I'm sending men to watch the perimeter." What's happening? He hesitates only a fraction of a second before deciding she deserves the truth. Daniel took someone. Someone who was helping build the case against him. He's using her to force my hand. Silence stretches on the line, thick and terrible. "Because of me," Nia whispers. "This is happening because of me." "No." His voice sharpens, urgent. "This is happening because of him. Don't you dare carry that." But grief and guilt rarely listen to reason, and long after the call ends, Nia sits in the dark of her bedroom, staring at the ceiling, turning over a decision that terrifies her more than anything Daniel has ever done. Therefore, at dawn, before the house wakes, before Min-jae's men arrive to stand guard at her gates, Nia does something neither of them sees coming. She packs a single bag. She leaves her phone, both of them, charging on the nightstand, screens dark. And she writes one line on a piece of paper, tucked beneath the burner phone where she knows Min-jae's people will eventually find it. "If I disappear," he stops. "Don't come looking. Save her instead." She slips out through the garden shed door Daniel's security never watches, into a grey, rain-threatened morning, believing, with the same quiet, desperate certainty that once made her send a text to a stranger at midnight, that walking away is the only way left to save the one person who ever truly saw her. She doesn't know yet that Kang Min-jae has never once, in 11 years, accepted losing something he refuses to let go of. And he isn't about to start now. Min-jae doesn't call the police. He doesn't call for backup. He calls Jun-woo, voice colder than anyone in his organization has heard in years. Find Grace Lin. Now. And find out exactly how deep Daniel's greed runs, because a man like him doesn't kidnap someone without a plan to profit from it too. Therefore, by mid-morning, Min-jae's people trace the money. Not the ransom, there isn't one. Daniel never intended to negotiate. He intended to disappear the evidence permanently, using the chaos of a manhunt as cover to move his remaining laundered assets out of the country by nightfall, on a private charter already fueled and waiting at Jimpo. But here's where it gets crazy. Min-jae doesn't send men to storm the warehouse where Grace is being held. He does something far more surgical. He leaks, through 3 separate channels simultaneously, evidence of Daniel's laundering network directly to the financial regulators already circling him, timed to hit at the exact moment Daniel's private charter requests clearance for takeoff. Assets freeze mid-transfer. Accounts lock. The charter is grounded on the tarmac by federal agents before the engines ever cool. Daniel Chen is arrested at Jimpo International, phone still in his hand, mid-call to a lawyer who can no longer help him. Grace Lin is found within the hour, shaken but unharmed, in a rented warehouse outside Incheon, the men guarding her scattering the moment word spreads that their employer's accounts and his freedom no longer exist. Nia hears none of it happening. She's 3 towns away by then, in a motel room paid for in cash, staring at a television bolted to the wall, watching her husband's face flash across a breaking news segment beneath the words financier arrested, massive laundering network exposed. Her hands shake around a cup of vending machine coffee. She doesn't cry. She just sits there, feeling something loosen in her chest that's been tightened for 3 straight years. Therefore, when the knock comes at her door 20 minutes later, she almost doesn't answer it. But some part of her already knows. She opens the door, and Kang Min-jae is standing there, rain soaking through his coat, expression somewhere between fury and relief. "You left," he says. "I had to. You don't ever have to disappear to protect me again." His voice cracks on the last word, just slightly, just enough. "Do you understand that?" Nia's eyes fill, and this time she lets it happen. "I thought if I was gone, he'd stop. I thought." "He's in custody," Min-jae says quietly. "Grace is safe. It's over." The words don't fully land at first. She stares at him, waiting for the catch, the way 3 years of marriage taught her every good thing comes with one. None comes. "It's over," he says again, softer. She crosses the small distance between them and lets him hold her, both of them soaked and exhausted, standing in a motel doorway on the edge of a city that nearly destroyed them both. Months pass. Daniel's trial dominates headlines for weeks before ending in a conviction that strips him of everything: the firm, the accounts, the reputation he spent a decade building on other people's stolen money. Nia testifies once, briefly, her voice steady in a way it hasn't been in years. Min-jae, meanwhile, begins something none of his men expected. Quietly, methodically, he starts converting the legitimate arms of his empire, the shipping routes, the import contracts, the businesses that were always real even when everything around them wasn't, into something fully legal. Not overnight. Not without resistance from men who liked the old ways. But steadily, the way a man builds something meant to last, instead of something built only to survive. "You're really doing this," Jun-woo says one evening, watching him sign the last of the restructuring papers. "I spent 11 years building an empire out of grief," Min-jae says. "I'd like to spend the next few building something out of something else." One rainy evening, months after it all ends, Min-jae and Nia return to the same street where it started, the quiet stretch outside her old estate, rain falling in soft silver sheets under the streetlights, the world around them finally, impossibly still. Nia smiles, tilting her head up toward him. "Do you ever wonder what would have happened if I hadn't sent that text?" Min-jae pulls out his phone, thumb moving to a message is kept, unread marked, untouched, for months. The first one. The wrong number that wasn't. "I never deleted it," he says. "I know." She laughs softly. "I checked." He smiles, the real one, the one Jun-woo swears he'd never seen before her. It wasn't the wrong number. He takes her hand, fingers lacing through hers. It was the right person. At exactly the right time. They start walking together into the rain, leaving behind 3 years of silence and a house that once felt like a cage. But neither of them notices the black sedan idling at the far end of the street, the one that's been parked there for 20 minutes, engine running, headlights off. Because 2 days ago, in a federal holding facility outside Seoul, Daniel Chen made a single phone call that wasn't logged in any visitor record. And somewhere in that empire Min-jae just spent months trying to clean, someone he trusted enough to never check twice just deposited $2 million into an account that shouldn't exist. If you want to see what happens next, whether Min-jae and Nia's happy ending survives what Daniel set in motion before his arrest, and who inside Min-jae's own circle has been quietly working against him this whole time, comment part 2 below and let's find out together.